Hello everyone, this is R.S. Miller at the endtimenews.org and today is July 15th, 2013. Heading for war with Russia. The Russian military is staging the biggest war games since the Soviet era. 160,000 servicemen, 1,000 tanks, 130 planes, and 70 ships are taking part in Russia's biggest military since the Soviet times. The war games will continue in the country's far east portion until July 20th. The maneuvers are the latest in a series of surprise military checks which performed by Russia in an effort to reveal and oust flaws in the country's defense program, according to the report. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu received an order to battle test readiness in the Eastern Command, which unites military forces in the Far East and the Trans-Baikal region. Following the order, 160,000 servicemen were put on high alert and began advancing toward the training sites. According to the Defense Ministry, around 1,000 tanks and armored vehicles, 130 planes and helicopters, and 70 ships are taking part in the war games. The main purpose of the activities is to check the readiness of the military units to perform assigned tasks and evaluate the level of personnel's training and technical participation, as well as the level of equipment of units with arms and military equipment, the Defense Ministry said in a statement. The statement noted that the drill would require some units to travel more than 3,000 kilometers from their usual deployment sites. Several hundred flat wagons and 50 rail cars were assigned to perform the transfer. The ground forces had been given 2 days to reach their destination. They have been tasked with pitching field camps, masking their positions, and organizing defense strategies upon arrival. The Russian Navy is also participating in the drill in the Sea of Okhotsk. The Navy has guided missile cruisers, large anti-submarine ships, assault ships, and a fleet destroyer, and a number of other vessels, all which are taking part in the war games. The fleet, accompanied by the Tupolev Tu-124 and Ilyushin Tu-38 anti-boat planes, has already successfully executed the task of search and detection of simulated enemy submarines. This massive military drill comes on the heels of an alleged Israeli attack on a Syrian weapons facility. Last week it was being reported that an Israeli airstrike was behind the mysterious attack on Syrian port of Latakia. According to the report, U.S. officials have revealed that explosions reported at a key Syrian port on July 5th were likely the result of an Israeli airstrike. 3 officials spoke to CNN on condition of anonymity, referring to the pre-dawn explosions in the city of Latakia as an Israeli operation which allegedly targeted Russian-made Yakout anti-ship missiles. The Yakout is a cruise missile with a range of 300 kilometers, capable of delivering a warhead weighing in at 250 kilograms. Russia supplied Syria's armed forces with a Yakout missile battery in 2011. Shortly after the July 5th incident, the Britain-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reported that huge explosions shook the area where a large Syrian army base and weapons depot were located. According to reports by the SOHR published by Haaretz, fighter jets were seen in the skies around the city of El Haifa, which lies east of Latakia. Several troops were reported to have been killed or wounded in the ensuing explosions. Syrian rebels said on Tuesday that foreign forces had destroyed advanced anti-ship missiles in Latakia, but only hinted that Israel had been behind the attack, Arutz Sheva reported. Qassam Saiduddin, spokesman for the Free Syrian Army's Supreme Military Council, reported that the rebels' intelligence network had identified missiles being stored in the depot which were hit. It was not the FSA that targeted this, Saiduddin told Reuters. It is not the attack that was carried out by rebels. This attack was either by air raid or long-range missiles fired from boats in the Mediterranean, he said. It appears that based on the ferocity of the attack, it would have been well beyond the firepower available to the FSA. The British Sunday Times reported that the Middle Eastern intelligence sources stated that the Israeli Dolphin-class submarines targeted a contingent of 50 Russian-made Yukon P-800 anti-ship missiles that had reportedly arrived earlier this year to support Syrian President Bashar Assad's regime. The alleged Israeli naval strike was reportedly closely coordinated with the U.S. According to the newspaper, the Israeli fleet of German-built submarines launched a cruise missile at the weapons cache, after which Syrian rebels reportedly attested to hearing early morning explosions at a Syrian port-side naval barracks. So far, the Israeli government has declined to confirm or comment on allegations that it was behind the July 5th attack on Latakia. If the claims are true, the attack would mark the fourth Israeli strike on Syria within the past 6 months. In all prior cases of strikes thought to be linked to Israel's armed forces, Israeli officials have not gone on record to take responsibility for the attacks. Tel Aviv has made it clear, however, that the country is prepared to go into Syria if it means preventing Hezbollah or other militant groups from attaining additional weaponry, including chemical weapons. Earlier, the leadership of Russia, Syria, Iran, and Hezbollah all had threatened reprisals if Israel were to attack Syria again. During this latest attack, neither Syrian radar nor that of the Russian warships cruising off the Syrian coast registered any aircraft or missiles heading for the Latakia depot, making it difficult, if not impossible, to positively establish the source of the explosions. However, if in fact Israel is responsible for the July 5th assault, it is quite logical that they would have used both aircraft and the Dolphin-class submarines in order to accomplish their objectives. We may never know the full story on that one, but according to another RT report, Turkey assisted Israel by allowing them to use Turkish military bases.
The outbreak of the Syrian conflict, Israel has used Turkish military bases for its strikes against Syria. Now, this is according to RT sources. A moment ago, I spoke to our Middle East correspondent, Paula Slier, for the latest.
RT sources tell us that Israel used Turkish military bases to launch attacks inside Syria. Now, these allegations refer to one of the Israeli attacks, but the latest attack was carried out in early July when there was a pre-dawn strike on the Syrian city of Latakia that allegedly targeted Russian-made Yakont anti-ship missiles. U.S. officials, speaking on condition of anonymity, say that this attack on this weapons depot was in all likelihood an Israeli airstrike. It happened not far from a Russian base, and there is suspicion from many quarters that Israeli fighter jets were responsible. A number of Syrian troops were killed and wounded in those explosions. No one has officially come forward and claimed responsibility for the attack. RT requested a reaction from the Israeli government, but the government declined to comment. What is important is that the attack, from the reports we have from our sources here in RT, originated on the Turkish side of the border. Our sources telling us that Israeli planes left a military base inside Turkey and approached Latakia from the sea to make sure that they stayed out of Syrian airspace so that they could not become a legitimate target for the Syrian Air Force.
If this is true, then the Syrian conflict is continuing to expand, drawing in other nations, which can only serve to place us farther down the road to war. During a meeting at the Black Sea resort of Sochi on May 14th, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned President Vladimir Putin that if Russia sends advanced weaponry to Syria, such as the S-300 anti-aircraft missiles or sophisticated radar for upgrading the Yakont missiles, Israel would destroy them. Putin retorted that if Israel did this, Moscow would hit back. On multiple occasions last year, Vladimir Putin warned Israel, Washington, and NATO that an attack on Syria or Iran would be considered an attack on Russia. Yesterday, Netanyahu appeared to be issuing a warning to whoever would be listening that an attack on Iran was in the foreseeable future. Iran is moving closer and closer to building a nuclear weapon, and Israel may have to act before the United States does, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned on Sunday. They are edging up to the red line. They haven't crossed it yet, Netanyahu said on CBS's news, Face the Nation. They are getting closer and closer to the bomb, and they have to be told in no uncertain terms that that will not be allowed to happen. Netanyahu went on to say that Israel had a more narrow timetable than Washington, implying it may have to take unilateral action to halt Iran's controversial nuclear program. Our clocks are ticking at a different pace. We are closer than the United States. We are more vulnerable, and therefore we'll have to address this question of how to stop Iran, perhaps before the United States does, he said. Netanyahu said Tehran has been building faster centrifuges that would enable them to jump the line, so to speak, at a much faster rate, that is, within a few weeks. Netanyahu said Iran's nuclear policies are unlikely to change under its next president, former nuclear negotiator Hassan Rouhani, who will assume power on August 3rd. He's criticizing his predecessor, the former President Ahmadinejad, for being a wolf in wolf's clothing. His strategy is to be a wolf in sheep's clothing. Smile and build a bomb, Netanyahu said. There is no doubt in my mind that Israel will attack Iran's nuclear facilities at some point in the near future in order to keep the Jewish state from being annihilated. Unfortunately, the Western nations don't see the real reasons behind the Islamic efforts to destroy Israel. In Psalms 83 says, "Do not keep silent, O God. Do not hold your peace, and do not be still, O God. For behold, your enemies make a tumult, and those who hate you have lifted up their head. They take crafty counsel against your people. They consult together against your sheltered ones. They have said, 'Come, let us cut them off for being a nation, that the name of Israel may be remembered no more.' For they have consulted together with one consent. They form a confederacy against you, the tents of Edom and the Ishmaelites, Moab and the Hagarites, Jabal, Ammon, Amalek, Philistia with the inhabitants of Tyre. Assyria also has joined them." This totally irrational and covertly satanic attitude has been around for thousands of years and will continue until the end of this age. That's why no matter how hard the peoples of the world try, they cannot solve the conflicts in the Middle East. In Zechariah chapter 12, the Lord states, "Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of drunkenness to all the surrounding peoples, when they lay siege against Judah and Jerusalem. And it shall happen in that day that I will make Jerusalem a very heavy stone for all peoples. All who would heave it away will surely be cut to pieces, though all nations of the earth be gathered against it." Skipping down to verse 9, "It shall be in that day I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem." These events are developing right before our very eyes and are leading up to the Gog-Magog war of Ezekiel 38 and 39. "Thus says the Lord God, Behold, I am against you, O Gog, the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal. I will turn you around, put hooks into your jaws, and lead you out, with all your armies, horses, and horsemen, all splendidly clothed with a great company, with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya are with them all, with shield and helmet. Gomer and all its troops, the house of Togarma from the far north, and all its troops. Many peoples are with you. Prepare yourself, and be ready, you and all your companies that are gathered about you, and be a guard for them. After many days you will be visited. In the latter years you will come into the land of those brought back from the sword, and gathered from many people on the mountains of Israel, which had long been desolate. They were brought out of the nations, and now all of them dwell safely. In chapter 39, the Lord says that I will send a fire on Magog and on those who live in security in the coastlands. Then they shall know that I am the Lord. And in verse 11 and 12, it will come to pass in that day that I will give Gog a burial place there in Israel, the valley of those who pass by east of the sea, and it will obstruct travelers, because there they will bury Gog and all his multitude. Therefore they will call it the valley of Hamon-Gog. And for 7 months the house of Israel will be burying them in order to cleanse the land. Friends, we are well on the road to war with Russia. Although I don't know exactly when this will take place, but I firmly believe that within the next several years there will be a world war involving the use of thermonuclear weapons. Perhaps they will be used in a limited fashion as opposed to an all-out global effort. Perhaps during a limited exchange of nuclear weapons, that's when the Antichrist comes on the scene and implements a 7-year peace treaty. I really don't know. But what I am 100% certain of is this: we are living in the last days, and there is not as much time left as many people think. The fact of the matter is that day will overtake most people like a thief in the night. Generally speaking, most are not paying attention to the signs of the times. Many are distracted with day-to-day concerns. Many are filled with drunkenness and revelry, and an ever-increasing number simply do not believe. It's a sad thing that so many will not discover the truth until it's too late, and will have to pay the ultimate price. But at the present time, it's not too late to avoid hell and eternal damnation. God has opened the door for whosoever will. In the 3rd chapter of John, starting at verse 16, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. He who believes in him is not condemned, but he who does not believe is condemned already, because he has not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of God." If you would like to receive salvation, follow the link in the box below and pray that simple prayer with a sincere heart, and you will be saved. May God bless you.